My parents demanded I let my struggling brother and his family live in my second property rent-free indefinitely. "It's your duty as family, he needs it more than you," my mother insisted. When I refused their entitled demands, they arrived with a locksmith to force entry. But their faces turned ashen when I revealed the real name on the property deed. The thing about family dinners is that they're never really about the food. They're elaborate traps disguised as pot roast and small talk, especially in my family. I should have known better than to accept my mother's invitation. But here I was watching the familiar drama unfold over Helen's famous lasagna. "Did you hear about Clyde?" My mother's voice carried that practiced tone of concern she'd perfected over the years. "They're being evicted next month." I kept my eyes on my plate, pushing a piece of garlic bread around. "That's terrible," I said, knowing full well what was coming next. "It is terrible," my father Dexter chimed in, right on cue, "especially when there are perfectly good solutions available." The silence that followed was heavy with expectation. I could feel their eyes on me waiting. "I'm Livia, by the way, the family ATM, eternal disappointment and, apparently, the solution to all of my brother's problems. That second condo of yours is just sitting there," my mother continued, reaching for her wine glass. "He has children, Livia. Your niece and nephew need a home." I set down my fork. "The condo isn't sitting empty, Mom. Ariel's been renting it for the past year. She's a great tenant, and that property is part of my retirement plan." "Plans can change," my father said sharply. "Family comes first." I took a slow sip of water, buying time. "Clyde makes twice what Ariel does. If he hadn't quit his last 3 jobs, don't you dare judge your brother." My mother's voice cracked like a whip. "He's trying his best. Unlike some people, he didn't have everything handed to him on a silver platter." I almost laughed at that. Everything handed to me? I'd worked 2 jobs through college, built my real estate portfolio from scratch, while Clyde, I can help him look for apartments in his price range, I offered. "Or maybe he could move in with you guys temporarily." "Absolutely not," my father cut in. "Your mother and I need our space. Besides, that's not the point. You have an extra property. You're single, no children. What do you need 2 homes for? Investment, security, future." I counted off on my fingers. "The same reasons anyone. Listen to yourself." My mother's eyes welled up with tears. "Right on schedule. So cold, so selfish." "What happened to you, Olivia? Where did we go wrong?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I should go. Thank you for dinner." "Sit down," my father commanded. "We're not finished discussing this." "Yes, we are." I grabbed my purse. "The condo isn't available. I'm sorry about Clyde's situation, but I can't or won't." My mother's voice had turned ugly. "Your brother would give you the shirt off his back. Funny. Since he still owes me $3,000 from last Christmas." I made it to the hallway before my mother's voice stopped me. "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." An empty threat. She'd used it at least a dozen times before. I turned to face them one last time. "I love you both, but my answer is no." I was halfway to my car when I realized I'd forgotten my phone on their kitchen counter. Cursing under my breath, I turned back. The side door was always unlocked, and I could slip in quietly to grab it. But as I approached, I heard voices through the window. "We can't believe she's doing this to us," my mother's voice thick with tears. "Don't worry." That was Clyde. When had he arrived? "I talked to that guy I know. He says we can handle this ourselves. She thinks she's so smart with her precious investment property." "Are you sure?" "My father now. If she finds out, she won't." "Trust me. By next week, this will all be sorted out." One way or another, I backed away from the window, my heart pounding. Whatever they were planning, it couldn't be good. I'd seen that determined tone in Clyde's voice before, right before he borrowed my car in college and totaled it, claiming it was stolen. My phone could wait. I needed to make some calls of my own. As I drove home, my hands were steady on the wheel even as my mind raced. They thought I was the selfish one? Fine. They wanted to play games? Okay. But this time, I wasn't going to roll over and take it. This time, I was going to be ready for whatever they threw at me. Because the thing about family dinners is that they're never really about the food. Sometimes, they're declarations of war. 3 days after the dinner from hell, my phone buzzed during a client meeting. Seeing Ariel's name flash across the screen, I excused myself to take the call. "Livia, I'm so sorry to bother you, but there's someone here trying to get into the condo." Her voice trembled. "They have a locksmith with them. They're saying it's family property and call the police. Now I'm on my way. I broke every speed limit getting there." By the time I pulled up, a patrol car was already parked outside, and there they were, my father and Clyde standing with a bewildered-looking locksmith, while 2 officers took statements. "There she is." Clyde pointed at me. "Tell them, Livia. Tell them this is a family misunderstanding." I walked straight to the officers. "I'm the property owner. These men were attempting to break in and change the locks while my tenant is still legally occupying the unit." "That's a lie," my father shouted. "This property belongs to the family. We have every right." Show them the paperwork then, I challenged, pulling out my phone. Meanwhile, I have the deed right here along with the current lease agreement. One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed my documents. Ma'am, would you like to press charges? I looked at my father's reddening face, at Clyde's poorly concealed panic. Not today, but I want this incident documented. After the officers left, taking the locksmith's information for their report, Clyde stepped toward me. You've really done it now, sis. Mom's going to what? I cut him off. Going to cry, manipulate, threaten? Tell me, Clyde, how's that working out for you so far? This isn't over, my father growled. Actually, it is. I turned to Ariel, who stood nervously in the doorway. You okay? She nodded. I got everything on video just in case, our house-smart girl. I smiled at her before facing my family again. Let me make something crystal clear. This property isn't just in my name anymore. It's in an irrevocable trust. Do you know what that means? The blank looks on their faces said it all. It means you can't touch it ever. Not through guilt, not through lawyers, not through locksmiths. So unless you want to add criminal charges to your growing list of problems, stay away from my property and my tenant. You planned this, my father accused, his voice low and dangerous. You knew we'd need help, and you made sure we couldn't get to it. Your own family. Actually, Natalia suggested the trust 6 months ago. I thought back to that conversation with my financial advisor and best friend. Your brother's been asking about your properties, she'd said over coffee, and your mom's been calling my office trying to get information about your accounts. You need to protect yourself. I'd laughed it off then. They're annoying, but they wouldn't actually try anything. Trust me, she'd insisted, I've seen this before. Family can be ruthless when money's involved. Let's set up the trust now before you need it. Standing here now, watching my father and brother seethe with thwarted entitlement, I silently thanked Natalia for her foresight. You've changed, Clyde spat. You used to care about family. I still do. That's why I'm not pressing charges, but this is your only warning. Come near my property again, and I'll bury you in legal fees so deep. You'll need more than Mom's tears to dig you out. They left, but not before my father turned back. Your mother will hear about this. You've broken her heart. Better her heart than my bank account, I called after him. Once they were gone, Ariel hugged me. Thank you. I was so scared when they showed up. You did exactly the right thing by calling me. I checked the security cameras I'd installed after the dinner incident. Send me that video you took, okay? Just in case. Back in my car, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. You actually think you're safe? Check Clyde's financials. You're not the only one he's trying to screw over. I stared at the message, my hands shaking slightly. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to believe this was the end of their schemes, but I knew better. This was just the beginning. I pulled up Natalia's number. Hey, remember when you said I might need a good private investigator someday? I think that day just arrived. Because the thing about family, sometimes protecting yourself from them is a full-time job. Jesse Black's office looked exactly like you'd expect a private investigator's workspace to look. Organized chaos of files, multiple monitors and coffee cups everywhere. She scrolled through documents while I tried to process what she just told me. Run that by me again, I said, leaning forward. You're saying Clyde already had money? Had being the operative word. Jessie turned one of her monitors toward me. Your grandfather left him a substantial inheritance 5 years ago, nearly $500,000. My coffee went cold in my hands. That's impossible. They've been crying poverty for years. Clyde's always borrowing money, saying they can barely afford groceries. Oh, he burned through it fast enough. Jessie pulled up bank statements, casino withdrawals, failed business ventures, luxury car leases. But here's where it gets interesting. She pointed to a series of transfers. These went to shell companies registered under your father's name. The room seemed to tilt. My father's involved? Deeply. Look at these dates. More documents appeared on screen. Every time Clyde made a major withdrawal, a corresponding amount would show up in one of your father's business accounts, usually disguised as consulting fees. But why would they hide this from me? They're always asking for the realization hit like a slap. They didn't want me to know they had money when they were begging for mine. Bingo. Jessie sat back. And there's more. Your father's been moving retirement funds through these same shell companies. From what I can tell, he's naming Clyde as a silent partner to avoid some pretty serious tax implications. My phone buzzed. A text from Natalia. Your mother and father just showed up at my office. They're making a scene. I have to go, I told Jessie, standing up. Send me everything you have and keep digging. I made it to Natalia's office in record time. The receptionist's wide eyes told me everything I needed to know. They're still in there, she whispered. Should I call security? Through the glass walls, I could see my parents facing off with Natalia, who maintained her professional calm even as my mother gesticulated wildly. I pushed open the door in time to hear, "How dare you help her betray her family like this?" "This is a place of business," Natalia said firmly. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Not until you undo whatever you did with that trust, my father demanded. You turned our daughter against us. No, I announced from the doorway. You did that all by yourselves. They spun around. My mother's face crumpled into her practice victim expression. How could you humiliate us like this, making us look like criminals in front of the police? Funny you should mention criminals. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the documents Jesse had just sent. Want to talk about Grandpa's inheritance? The one Clyde burned through while still begging me for money? The color drained from my father's face. Where did you, or maybe we should discuss your shell companies, the creative accounting. I wonder what the IRS would think about you. Wouldn't dare, my father growled, taking a step toward me. Natalia's hand moved to her desk phone. Sir, step back or I'm calling security. We're leaving, my mother announced, grabbing my father's arm. But this isn't over, Olivia. You think you're so clever with your investigations and your trust, but you have no idea what you're doing to this family. I know exactly what I'm doing, I replied. I'm finally seeing it clearly. After they stormed out, Natalia hugged me. I'm so sorry, I never thought they'd show up here. I'm the one who's sorry, but thank you for everything. You were right about the trust. Don't thank me yet. She looked worried. They're desperate now. Desperate people do stupid things. My phone chimed with a voicemail notification. Lindsay's name appeared on the screen. I played it on speaker. Livia, please. My sister-in-law's voice broke with sobs. Clyde's talking about hurting himself. He says he can't take the shame, the pressure. If anything happens to him, it'll be your fault. His blood will be on your hands. Please just give him the property before it's too late. I deleted the message, my hands steady despite the rage building inside me. They're trying to manipulate you, Natalia said softly. I know. I gathered my things, and they just made a huge mistake. What are you going to do? I thought about the inheritance, the shell companies, the years of lies and manipulation. They want to play dirty? Fine. Let's see how they handle it when I stop playing nice. Because the thing about manipulation, it only works until your target decides they're done being manipulated. Lindsay's voicemail haunted me for exactly 6 minutes, the time it took to drive to Flynn's law office. My attorney was already waiting. Documents spread across his desk like battle plans. Your brother's suicide threat, Flynn said, reviewing the voicemail I'd forwarded. Classic emotional extortion. We're documenting everything. Should I be worried? I asked, thinking of Clyde's theatrical tendencies. About his safety? No. About what this reveals about their tactics? Absolutely. Flynn pulled up a file on his computer. They're escalating. First, physical intimidation with the locksmith, now psychological warfare. We need to move fast. Natalia arrived with a stack of financial records. You're going to want to see these, she said, spreading them across Flynn's desk. Dexter's been busy. Look at these transfers. I leaned in, scanning the documents. These dates, they line up with every time I refuse the money. Exactly. Natalia pointed to specific transactions. Every time you said no, they moved funds between accounts. They were never desperate. They were hiding assets. My phone buzzed. Ariel again. Livia, Clyde, and Lindsay are outside the building. They're telling everyone I'm squatting in their property, that you stole it from them. Stay inside, I ordered. I'm calling the police. Flynn held up a hand. Wait. Let's use this. Record everything they say. We need to establish a pattern of harassment. An hour later, I had what I needed. Video footage of Clyde screaming at my tenant, Lindsay dramatically sobbing about their homeless children, and multiple witnesses to their behavior. Perfect, Flynn said, reviewing the footage. Now about those financial records. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Miss Summers, a stern voice asked. This is Capital One Fraud Department. We're calling about some unusual activity on your account. My blood ran cold as the representative detailed thousands in charges, all under my name, all authorized with my social security number. I never opened that account, I said, putting the call on speaker. The application was submitted last week, the rep explained. With all your correct information, Flynn was already typing. Identity theft. Add it to the list. After the call, I sat in stunned silence. Natalia squeezed my shoulder. You okay? They used my social, I said quietly. My own family. This is good, Flynn interjected. Well, not good, but useful. Identity theft is federal. They've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. What's our next move? I asked. We go nuclear. Flynn pulled out a fresh legal pad. First we file fraud charges, then we prepare a civil suit detailing everything, the harassment, the financial crimes, all of it. But most importantly, he smiled grimly. We make it public. Public? My stomach lurched. They're counting on your silence, Natalia added. On your shame. Break that, and their power crumbles. My phone chimed with a text from Lindsay. Hope you're happy. Clyde's in the hospital. This is all your fault. I showed it to Flynn, who immediately started typing on his phone. Checking local hospitals. Nothing. No admissions under his name in the last 24 hours. Another lie. That's it. I stood up, anger finally overwhelming caution. I'm done playing defense. What are you thinking? Natalia asked. They want to destroy my reputation? Fine. Let's see how they handle having their own dirty laundry aired out. I turned to Flynn. How quickly can we file those charges? Give me an hour. Good. Natalia, get me everything you have on Dexter Shell Companies. Everything. Already compiled. I pulled out my own phone, opening my email. I'm sending everything to Jessie. Let's see what else she can dig up about their finances. Livia, Flynn cautioned. Once we start this, there's no going back. They're family. No. I cut him off. Family doesn't commit fraud in your name. Family doesn't threaten and manipulate. Family doesn't. My phone rang again. This time, it was the police. Ma'am, we're responding to a report of suspicious activity on your credit. Multiple accounts opened in your name, totaling over $50,000 in charges. I put the phone on speaker, letting Flynn and Natalia hear every detail. With each new revelation, my resolve strengthened. They hadn't just crossed a line. They'd obliterated it. File everything, I told Flynn after the call ended. Every charge, every threat, every lie, no more protecting them. Because the thing about family secrets, sometimes the only way to break their power is to drag them into the light. As I left Flynn's office, another text came through, this time from an unknown number. You think you're untouchable with your fancy lawyer? Wait until you see what's coming next. I smiled, screenshot the message and forward it to Flynn. Let them come. This time, I was ready. I found Clyde waiting in my office parking lot the next morning. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same martyred expression our mother had perfected. We need to talk, he said, pushing off his car. About the credit card fraud? I kept walking. Or about faking a suicide threat? He followed me to the building entrance. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Mom and Dad, they said. Stop. I turned to face him. Just stop. I've seen the financial records, Clyde. I know about Grandpa's inheritance. His face went slack. How did you $500,000? I said, watching him flinch. You had $500,000 while begging me for rent money, while letting Mom guilt me about your struggling family. You don't understand, he stammered. Dad said we needed to invest it in his business ventures. He promised it would triple, and the credit card's in my name. Was that Dad's idea too? He looked away. We were desperate. Desperate? I laughed bitterly. You were desperate after blowing through an inheritance that could have bought you a house? After helping Dad commit tax fraud? Keep your voice down. He grabbed my arm. I jerked away. Don't touch me ever. What do you want? His voice cracked. Money? Fine. I'll pay you back. Just drop this whole investigation thing. You're going to ruin everyone's lives. You did that yourself. I pulled out my phone, showing him the fraud report. I filed this morning. The police are involved now. All color drained from his face. You can't. Lindsay's pregnant again. If I go to jail, you should have thought about that before stealing my identity. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Lindsay's not pregnant. I called her doctor's office pretending to confirm an appointment. Nice try though. It was Mom's idea, he blurted out. The credit cards, the pregnancy story, all of it. She said you'd never find out. We were desperate. You keep using that word. I cut him off. I don't think it means what you think it means. Please, he begged. I'll tell you everything about Dad's schemes, Mom's plans, all of it. Just drop the charges. I studied him. My big brother, the golden child, now reduced to bargaining in a parking lot. You know what's funny? For years I thought I was the family failure, the cold, selfish one who didn't care enough. But look at us now. My phone buzzed, Jessie's number. Your father's being audited, she said without preamble. IRS is looking into those shell companies. They're going to find everything. I watched Clyde's face as I replied, good, send me the details. Livia, he pleaded, think about what this will do to Mom and Dad. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about every Christmas they made me feel guilty for my success. Every time they called me selfish for not sharing with you, every manipulation, every lie, a memory hit me. Being 16, winning a scholarship. Mom barely looked up from fawning over Clyde's C+ in math. That's nice, dear, she'd said, but your brother really applied himself. My phone chimed again. A text from Natalia. Your mother just showed up at my office again with CPS. What? I said aloud. She's claiming you're endangering Clyde's children by forcing them into homelessness. They want to investigate you for child endangerment. I showed Clyde the message. Child endangerment? Really? He had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't know she was going to save it. I walked toward the building entrance. Tell Mom her little CPS stunt just cost her any chance of mercy. I'm done playing nice. What are you going to do? I swiped my keycard, letting the door close between us. Watch the news. I'm sure you'll find out. Inside, I called Flynn. How quickly can we go public with everything? Give me an hour to prepare the press release. Do it. I sat at my desk, hands steady as I typed an email to Jessie. And, Flynn, make sure everyone knows exactly who the real victims are in this story. Because the thing about family drama, once it goes public, there's no controlling the narrative. And I was done letting them control mine. My phone lit up with another text from my mother this time. CPS is just the beginning. Back off now, or you'll regret it. I screenshot the threat and forwarded it to Flynn. The war was fully on now, and I intended to win it. The CPS workers looked as uncomfortable as I felt, sitting in my living room while I presented lease agreements, tenant records and security footage proving that Clyde had never lived in my property. As you can see, I explained, pulling up Ariel's rental history, this unit has been continuously occupied by other tenants. My brother has his own residence across town. The senior investigator, a tired-looking woman named Sandra, reviewed the documents. This appears to be a misunderstanding, or she glanced meaningfully at my mother who sat rigid on my couch. A deliberate false report. This is ridiculous, my mother snapped. She's twisting everything. Those poor children, Mrs. Summers, Sandra interrupted. Filing false reports is a serious offense. We're here to protect children, not to be used as a weapon in family disputes. Weapon. My mother's voice rose. You want to talk about weapons? Look at her. She jabbed a finger at me. Sitting there with her precious documents are her perfect life while her family suffers. You always were the problem, ugly little girl. You'll die alone. You know that? No one could ever love someone so cold. Ma'am, Sandra stood up. This interview is over. She nodded to her colleague who was already recording my mother's outburst on his tablet. We'll be noting this behavior in our report. After the CPS workers left, my mother remained trembling with rage. You recorded that. You recorded me. Actually, my security system did. I gestured to the discrete cameras in my living room corners, the same system that caught Dad and Clyde trying to break into my property, the same one recording you right now. You think you're so clever? She stepped closer, her face twisted. You have no idea what's coming. We raised you, gave you everything. You gave me trauma, I corrected. Manipulation, guilt, a lifetime of feeling never good enough because I wouldn't play by your rules. Rules? She laughed sharply. You want to talk about rules? Check your phone. As if on cue, my phone buzzed, a Reddit notification. My stomach dropped as I opened it. There, trending on Rami the asshole, was a post from Clyde, a TA, for asking my heartless sister to help save my children from homelessness. The post was everything you'd expect. A masterpiece of manipulation, painting me as a monster who'd rather see children on the street than share my empty property. It already had thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments calling me every name in the book. Social media is a funny thing, my mother smirked. People love a good villain story. I looked up from my phone, suddenly calm. You know what's funnier? Evidence. I opened my laptop, turning it to show her the folder I'd been building, financial records, audio recordings, security footage, text messages, emails, everything documenting their months of harassment and fraud. I was going to handle this privately, I said, watching her face pale. But you just made it public. So let's give the internet what it really wants, the truth. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I started typing. Should I start with the inheritance Clyde blew through, Dad's tax fraud, the credit card theft, or maybe your false CPS report? I'll deny everything. With what evidence? I gestured to my cameras. Every threat you've made is recorded, every lie documented, and every scheme exposed. She grabbed her purse, hands shaking. This isn't over. Actually it is. I stood up. You wanted a public fight? Congratulations, you got one. After she left, I called Flynn. How quickly can we respond to Clyde's Reddit post? Already drafting it, he said, with links to all the evidence. Once this goes live, their whole house of cards collapses. I finished. Do it. I walked to my window, watching my mother's car speed away. My phone buzzed again, Natalia this time. You okay? She asked. No, I admitted. But I will be. The truth always comes out, she said softly. Sometimes it just needs a push. I looked at my laptop, at the folder containing years of evidence, at Clyde's viral Reddit post attempting to destroy me. One click would change everything. One post would expose every lie, every manipulation, every crime. My finger hovered over the mouse. Part of me still hesitated. They were family after all. Then my mother's words echoed. Ugly little girl, you'll die alone. I clicked post because the thing about family, sometimes the only way to heal is to let the whole world see exactly who they really are. The truth was out now, and there was no taking it back. My response post went viral within hours. The internet, it turns out, loves a good revenge story, especially one with receipts. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence laid bare for the world to see. Your post just hit the front page, Natalia said, refreshing her screen. The comments, people are sharing similar stories. You've started something. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Local news, online journalists, podcast hosts, everyone wanted the full story. Clyde's original post was deleted, but screenshots lived forever, now side by side with the truth. Miss Summers, a reporter caught me outside the courthouse. Can you comment on your father's arrest? I turned to face the cameras. Everything I have to say is in the evidence I provided to authorities. But how do you feel about how do I feel? I interrupted, surprising myself. I feel relieved. The truth is finally out. Financial abuse is still abuse. Family manipulation is still manipulation. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no more. Inside, Flynn waited with updates. Your father's being charged with tax evasion and fraud. Clyde's facing identity theft charges. Your mother, he checked his notes, the false CPS report is being investigated. And Lindsay left town last night, posted a long Facebook statement distancing herself from everything. Smart woman finally. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessie. You need to see this. She'd forwarded a link to a local community Facebook group. There was my mother posting a tearful video about her mentally unstable daughter destroying the family. Don't worry, Jessie added. I've got screenshots of her deleting comments that expose her lies. The next few days passed in a blur. More evidence emerged as others came forward. Former business partners my father had cheated, distant relatives who'd been scammed, old friends who'd witnessed the manipulation. Your story inspired my daughter to finally stand up to her abusive in-laws, one message read. I thought I was alone in dealing with financial abuse from family, said another. Thank you for showing me I'm not. A week after my post, I stood outside the courthouse again. My father had just been denied bail, flight risk, given the offshore accounts Jessie had uncovered. Was revenge worth it? A different reporter this time, holding out her microphone. I looked directly into the camera. This isn't revenge, this is justice. This is saying enough to years of abuse disguised as family obligation. This is showing others they don't have to accept manipulation just because it comes from people who share their DNA. My phone lit up with a notification. Clyde had posted again, this time a confession. Everything my sister said was true. I'm sorry, I need help. Later that evening, sitting in Flynn's office, we reviewed the aftermath. Your father's facing serious time, he said. The IRS doesn't play around. Clyde's agreed to testify against him in exchange for a lighter sentence. Your mother, he sighed. She's been served with restraining orders from 3 different people who came forward with harassment claims. And the condo, safe in the trust. Though given everything that's come out, I doubt they'll try anything else. My phone buzzed. Ariel, just wanted you to know I'm moving out next month. Saved enough for a down payment on my own place. You inspired me to stop waiting and take control of my life. That night, I drove past my parents' house, dark now, empty. My mother was staying with her sister who'd posted a long rant about family loyalty that backfired spectacularly when someone shared screenshots of her own financial schemes. Natalia called as I pulled into my driveway. You trending again? Apparently. I unlocked my door. Did you see Clyde's confession? Yeah. Think he means it? Doesn't matter anymore. I settled onto my couch feeling the weight of the past weeks. It's out of my hands now. The truth is doing its job. Any regrets? I thought about my father in his cell, my mother's tearful videos, Clyde's fall from grace, only that I didn't do it sooner. Because the thing about karma, sometimes it needs a witness. Sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting in secret, it's simply standing in the light and telling the truth. My phone lit up one last time, another message from a stranger. Your story gave me courage. Tomorrow I'm finally telling my family no. I smiled, typing back, the truth will set you free. But first, it'll piss everyone off. And sitting there in my quiet house surrounded by the aftermath of justice served, I felt nothing but peace. The silence in my condo felt different now, peaceful instead of lonely. I was sorting through old family photos when Ariel knocked on my door, holding a small gift bag. I know I still have 2 weeks left on the lease, she said, stepping inside, but I wanted to give you this before I moved out. Inside the bag was a framed quote. Sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched, and congratulations on your new place. I couldn't have done it without you showing me what standing up for yourself looks like. She hesitated. Have you heard from them? A letter came from my mother this morning. I nodded toward the unopened envelope on my coffee table. Haven't decided if I'm reading it. My phone buzzed. Natalia, turn on channel 7. Now. I grabbed the remote. There on screen was my father in his prison jumpsuit being led into court. The headline scrolled, Local businessman pleads guilty in tax fraud scheme. In a surprising development, the reporter said, Dexter Summers has agreed to a plea deal implicating several business associates in a years-long financial fraud operation. Ariel squeezed my hand as we watched. You okay? Better than okay. I muted the TV. It's finally over. My phone lit up again, this time with a message from Lindsay. I filed for divorce today. You were right about everything. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Speaking of over, Ariel said, I heard your story is being featured in that documentary about financial abuse in families. They're interviewing me next week. I picked up my mother's letter. Want to witness me either making or regretting a decision? Open it. The letter was exactly what I expected. 3 pages of guilt, blame, and zero accountability. "You've destroyed this family," she wrote. "I hope you're happy in your empty life with your empty victory." I handed it to Ariel, who read it and shook her head. "She still doesn't get it." "No," I agreed, taking the letter to my fireplace. "But I finally do." As the pages curled and blackened in the flames, my phone chimed with an email notification. The subject line read, "Thank you for saving my life." "Dear Livia," it began. "I was going to give my manipulative family my entire retirement fund, because family helps family. Then I read your story. Today, I said no, they're furious, but I'm free. Thank you for showing me the way." Ariel read over my shoulder. "You've started a movement, you know. People are waking up, maybe that's what this was all about." I gestured to the burning letter. "Not revenge, not even justice, just truth." My doorbell rang. Natalia stood there with takeout bags. "Thought you might need dinner and a friend tonight." As we ate, more messages poured in. Stories of courage, of boundaries set, of freedom found. Each one a reminder that the price of truth, however heavy, was worth paying. "I have something to show you," Natalia said, pulling out her tablet. "Remember that post you made about turning pain into purpose?" She pulled up a website, Financial Freedom from Family Fraud, a resource center for people dealing with family financial abuse. "It launches next week," she explained. "People need guidance, support, legal resources. Your story showed us that." I stared at the screen, at the tagline, "Because love shouldn't cost you everything." "This is perfect," I whispered. My phone buzzed one last time. "Jesse, just got word. Your mother's sister is under investigation too. The whole house of cards is falling." Ariel raised her glass. "To karma, to truth," Natalia added. "To freedom," I finished. Later, after they'd left, I walked through my quiet home. The photos I'd been sorting still lay scattered, memories of a family that never really existed except in carefully staged pictures. I gathered them up not to hide or burn, but to keep. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying the past, it's building a future that makes that past irrelevant. Opening my laptop, I began typing, "Dear Internet family, today someone asked if I regret exposing the truth. Here's my answer. The only thing I regret is believing I deserve the abuse. So here's what I want you to know. Because the thing about family, sometimes letting go is the strongest way to hold on to yourself, and sometimes karma doesn't just need a push. It needs a witness, a voice, and a community brave enough to say, 'Me too, I believe you, you're not alone.'" I hit post and smiled. The silence in my home wasn't just peaceful now. It was powerful.
Father forces son to get married with beggar and is shocked when he finds out who she is. Full story with updates. Enrico was known for his fortune and influence but also for his strict temperament and traditional views on life. He had one son, Leonardo Di Luca, a 25-year-old who had been educated in the best schools and surrounded by all the luxuries money could buy. However, Leonardo was different from his father. While Enrico valued wealth and status, Leonardo had a kind heart and a free spirit. He enjoyed art, music, and was interested in understanding the stories of ordinary people, those who lived on the streets of Florence. Leonardo was beloved by many, but his compassionate attitude was not well regarded by his father, who wanted his son to follow in his footsteps in business and keep the family at the top of Italian society. Despite all their differences, Leonardo always respected his father, trying as much as possible to please him. But Enrico's pressures began to increase when he decided it was time for Leonardo to marry. For Enrico, his son's marriage to a young woman from a wealthy and influential family was the next logical step to ensure the continuation of the Di Luca dynasty. Leonardo, on the other hand, did not believe in arranged marriages and even less in marrying for convenience. He wanted to marry for love, something his father considered youthful foolishness. The tension between father and son grew with each passing day until an incident changed the course of their lives. One day, during a solitary walk through the historic streets of Florence, Leonardo crossed paths with a young beggar named Sofia. She was a familiar figure in the city, always sitting at the same corner, begging for alms to survive. Sofia had a sad expression, but at the same time, there was something in her eyes that captivated Leonardo. He stopped to talk to her and was fascinated by her intelligence, humor, and kindness. Despite life's hardships, when Enrico discovered that his son was getting close to a beggar, he was furious. To him, this was a disgrace and a threat to the Di Luca family legacy. As punishment, Enrico decided that Leonardo should marry Sofia, believing that this would drive his son away from any romantic notions and make him understand the weight of family responsibility. However, Enrico was not prepared for what this decision would set in motion. When Leonardo was confronted by his father with the order to marry Sofia, he was stunned. He couldn't believe that his own father would force him to make such a drastic and unjust decision as a form of punishment. Yet Enrico's firm and uncompromising stance made it clear that this was not a suggestion, but a non-negotiable demand. Leonardo found himself in a deep dilemma: obey his father and sacrifice his own convictions, or resist and face Enrico's wrath, risking disinheritance and losing everything he knew. Sophia in turn was confused and frightened by the marriage proposal. She knew she wasn't part of Leonardo's world and feared that this marriage was just a cruel joke by the rich. However, when Leonardo visited her again, he explained his situation and asked her to trust him. He promised to treat her with respect and dignity regardless of the circumstances. Despite her doubts, Sophia accepted the marriage proposal, and the two were married in a modest ceremony, far from the lavish weddings Enrico had imagined for his son. The news of the marriage quickly spread through the high society of Florence, causing shock and scandal. Enrico's friends and acquaintances began to question his sanity and the De Luca family's position in society. Enrico, however, was convinced that this mistake would soon be corrected, and that Leonardo would eventually separate from Sophia, learning a valuable lesson. However, as time passed, something unexpected began to happen. Leonardo and Sophia, united by unusual circumstances, started to develop a genuine bond. Leonardo began to see Sophia not just as the beggar his father wanted him to despise, but as a strong, intelligent woman with a big heart. They started spending more time together, and Leonardo discovered that Sophia had a special talent for painting. She was a gifted artist who, despite living on the streets, had never abandoned her passion for art. Leonardo decided to help her develop this talent by introducing her to local galleries and promoting her work among the artist friends he knew. Soon Sophia's paintings began to catch the attention of art critics, and she became a sensation in Florence. What started as a forced and loveless marriage turned into a creative and emotional partnership that surprised everyone, including themselves. During this time, Sophia met Chiara, a young gallery owner who became Sophia's biggest supporter. She saw Sophia's potential from the start and worked tirelessly to promote her work. Chiara also became a close friend of Sophia, offering emotional support and helping her adjust to the new world she now lived in. Enrico had a longtime friend named Giovanni, a very wealthy local businessman but of dubious character. He was a cynical man who viewed Leonardo's marriage to Sophia as a joke. However, seeing Sophia's rising popularity and Leonardo's transformation, he began to question his own beliefs about what truly matters in life. On the other hand, Enrico, upon seeing Sophia's unexpected success and the growing bond between her and Leonardo, started to feel a mix of pride and bitterness. He had never expected that his punishment would result in something positive, and this made him reflect on his own choices and values. As time passed, the relationship between Leonardo and Sophia grew in trust and affection. They formed a strong partnership both in love and in art, and Sophia became a respected figure in Florence's art scene. But as in every story, an unexpected event was about to change everything. At a gala night in Florence where Sophia's works would be exhibited alongside renowned artists, Enrico decided to make a surprise appearance. He had spent the last few months avoiding the couple, unwilling to admit to himself that he was beginning to admire Sophia's resilience and talent. However, that night, something inside him made him want to see his daughter-in-law's success up close, perhaps for the first time without the burden of prejudice. During the exhibition, one of Sophia's paintings, depicting a female figure in a desolate landscape, caught the attention of a renowned international art critic. The critic was impressed by the emotional depth of the work and asked Sophia about her inspiration. Sophia, with her calm and humble voice, revealed that the figure in the painting was inspired by her own mother, a woman who, before dying, fought against poverty and social injustice, but always maintained her dignity and hope. Enrico, who was listening to the conversation from a distance, felt a shock upon hearing this story. The figure in the painting somehow seemed familiar to him. As he moved closer to the canvas, he was paralyzed when he recognized something in the woman's features. He realized that the figure was a representation of someone he knew well, someone he had lost many years ago. Enrico began to tremble, and feeling the weight of the revelation, he left the gallery in a hurry without saying a word. Leonardo and Sophia, concerned, tried to follow him, but he was already out of sight. That night, Enrico couldn't sleep. He was consumed by memories of the past, memories he had buried deep. He remembered a woman he had loved in his youth, a woman with whom he had had a brief but intense relationship. That woman, whom he abandoned due to family pressures, was Sophia's mother. The revelation was a devastating blow to Enrico. He realized that Sophia, the woman he despised and saw as a threat to his legacy, was in fact his own daughter. He had punished his son Leonardo by forcing him to marry his own sister, unaware of Sophia's true identity. As Enrico grappled with this new reality, he knew he had to reveal the truth to Leonardo and Sophia, but the pain of the discovery and the fear of the consequences paralyzed him. How could he tell them? How could he face the fact that he himself had caused so much suffering? Days passed and Enrico decided that the only way to deal with the situation was to tell the truth. He called Leonardo and Sophia for a meeting at his mansion without revealing the reason. When they arrived, Enrico was visibly shaken, something Leonardo had never seen before. He asked them to sit down, and with a trembling voice he began to tell His story, from his youth to the moment he abandoned the woman he now knew was Sophia's mother. The revelation was devastating for Leonardo and Sophia. They sat in silence, processing the enormity of what they had just heard. Sophia in particular was crushed, feeling betrayed and confused. The man she had begun to love was in fact her brother, and the father she never knew had been the one responsible for her misery and that of her mother. After Enrico's devastating revelation, Leonardo and Sophia's world fell apart. The news left them emotionally shattered, unable to comprehend how they could move forward. Leonardo, who had always admired and respected his father, now found himself facing a moral and emotional dilemma that seemed insurmountable. He didn't know how to deal with the pain of discovering that his wife was actually his sister, and that his father had been responsible for so much suffering. Sophia, on the other hand, was consumed by a mixture of anger, sadness, and despair. She found herself torn between the love she had begun to feel for Leonardo and the horror of discovering that he was her brother. Additionally, her resentment towards Enrico grew, knowing that he had abandoned her mother and contributed to her difficult life. They both decided to take some time apart. Leonardo went to the family's countryside house in Tuscany, while Sophia sought refuge at Chiara's house, her friend and gallery owner. During this time, both faced intense moments of reflection and self-questioning. At the countryside house, Leonardo isolated himself from the world. He spent days reflecting on his life, his choices, and the future that now seemed to be in ruins, and whether he could continue living in Florence, knowing that society would soon discover the truth. But at the same time, he remembered the moments of happiness he shared with Sophia, and how she had brought light into his life. Despite the pain, he realized that the love he felt for her was real, though complicated. Meanwhile, in Florence, Sophia immersed herself in her art as a way of coping with the pain. The paintings she began to create were intense, filled with emotion and complexity. Chiara, always by her side, encouraged her to channel her emotions into her work. Gradually, Sophia realized that despite everything, she still had control over her life and her future. She decided that, regardless of the past, she would choose how to live from now on. Sophia began to rebuild her confidence and accept that her life didn't have to be defined by Enrico's past mistake. She decided she wouldn't let the suffering of the past destroy what she and Leonardo had built together. After weeks apart, Leonardo and Sophia decided to meet and talk. The meeting was tense and filled with emotions. They both knew that their lives had changed forever, and that any decision they made would carry profound consequences. Sitting in a quiet park in Florence, they spoke openly about their pain, fears, and hopes. Sophia shared her decision to move forward with her life, regardless of what happened between them. She stated that she wanted to continue painting, and was determined to find a new path for herself. Leonardo in turn confessed that despite all the suffering, he still loved her, and couldn't imagine his life without her. He suggested that although they knew a marriage between them was impossible, they could continue to support and love each other in another way. They decided then to remain as life and art partners, recognizing that the love between them transcended conventions and the tragedies of the past. However, there was still something to be resolved with Enrico. They both knew he was suffering from guilt and regret. They decided to confront him together, not to punish him but to find a way to move forward as a family, despite the difficult circumstance. Leonardo and Sophia returned to Florence, determined to face Enrico and resolve the situation once and for all. The tension was high as they approached the family mansion. The silence between them reflected the gravity of the moment, but also their determination to find a way out of the pain that everyone was feeling. Upon arriving at the mansion, they were greeted by a visibly worn-out Enrico. He had aged considerably in the past few days, the weight of guilt and regret marking his face. He knew that this conversation would be difficult, perhaps the most difficult of his life, but he also knew it was necessary. Inside the mansion, the three of them sat in a large living room where so many family memories had been created. The atmosphere was heavy with emotion, and for a moment none of them could find the right words to begin. Finally, Enrico, with a broken voice, began to speak. He confessed the depth of his regret, not only for what he had done to Sophia and Leonardo, but also for allowing pride and social conventions to keep him away from true love. He admitted that deep down, he had always known that his behavior was wrong, but the fear of losing respect and status had prevented him from doing what was right. Leonardo, still bitter, asked his father why he had been so cruel, not only by abandoning them, but by forcing the marriage between him and Sophia. Enrico, crying, explained that initially it was just a way of punishment and control, but he never imagined that it would lead them to fall in love. He never intended to hurt them this way, but it had proven to be cruel and ironic. Sophia, on the other hand, remained silent as she listened to everything, trying to process the pain and confusion she felt. Finally, she stood up and, with unexpected strength, told Enrico that despite all the suffering, she was willing to forgive him. She knew that carrying the weight of hatred and resentment would only destroy her further. She wanted to move forward, free from the shadow of the past, and the only way to do that was by forgiving. Leonardo, seeing Sophia's courage and compassion, felt moved to do the same. He looked at his father, who was in tears, and, after a long pause, said that he was also willing to forgive him, but that they would need time to rebuild the trust and love within the family. He knew the path would be long and painful. He believed that with time they could find peace. Enrico, relieved and still in tears, deeply thanked his two children, promised to spend the rest of his life trying to make up for the harm he caused and, above all, to support Sophia and Leonardo in anything they needed. He knew he could never erase the past, but he hoped that somehow he could help build a better future for all of them. And then Enrico embraced them, sealing a pact of redemption, love, and hope. They knew that the wounds would take time to heal, but they were determined to move forward together as a family. In the days that followed, life began to change for Leonardo, Sophia, and Enrico. Though the pain of the past was still present, there was a renewed sense of hope and determination to build something new and better. Leonardo and Sophia decided to continue their lives together, no longer as husband and wife but as life and art partners, united by a deep and unbreakable bond. The decision to forgive Enrico brought an unexpected relief to both of them. They realized that, by letting go of resentment and anger, they were making room for healing and personal growth. Enrico, for his part, began dedicating himself to charitable work in Florence, trying to atone for the harm he had caused. He became a quiet benefactor of several institutions that help single mothers and people in vulnerable situations, as a form of penance for his past mistake. Meanwhile, Sophia continued to paint, and her works began to gain even more recognition. The pain and resilience she had experienced were reflected in her paintings, which are now considered masterpieces of emotional expression. Chiara, her friend and gallery owner, organized a special exhibition for Sophia, where her new works were presented to the public for the first time. The exhibition was an absolute success, attracting the attention of critics and collectors from all over Italy. Leonardo, inspired by Sophia's strength, decided to resume his career as a lawyer, but with a different purpose. He began specializing in social justice cases, helping those who were unjustly treated or neglected by society. His work brought him a new sense of fulfillment, and he became a respected and admired lawyer. Enrico, in an effort to restore his family's trust, decided to transfer the management of the family business to Leonardo. He recognized that for his son to flourish and feel valued, he needed to give him the responsibility and autonomy to lead. Leonardo accepted the challenge with humility, knowing this was an opportunity to create a new legacy, free from the mistakes of the past. Life at the Tuscany family mansion began to transform. The atmosphere, once marked by tension and rigid expectations, became a place of warmth and renewal. Sophia and Leonardo, though no longer married, continued to live in the mansion, transforming it into a center for art and culture. The space, once reserved only for the elite, was now accessible to everyone, especially those who did not have the same privilege. Enrico, who had decided to live in a separate wing of the mansion, dedicated himself to writing a book about his life, failures, and the lessons he had learned. He wanted to leave the world an honest account of his journey, as a testament that even the gravest mistakes can be redeemed with humility and sincere repentance. During the final moments of the story, we see Leonardo and Sophia in the mansion's garden, watching a group of young artists painting and creating their works. They exchange a knowing look, realizing that, despite everything, they have found a new purpose and a new kind of love, one that transcends the conventions and pains of the past. The legacy of the Tuscany family, once marked by wealth and power, is now remembered for its contribution to art and justice. And while the scars of the past never fully disappear, they serve as a constant reminder that true redemption and happiness come from the ability to forgive, love, and move forward despite adversity. 5 years have passed since that sad day at the Tuscany mansion, and everyone's lives have been profoundly transformed. Time brought new opportunities, healed old wounds, and strengthened the bonds that were once so fragile. Sophia, now a renowned artist in Italy and beyond, traveled the world exhibiting her works, which not only reflected her personal journey but also touched on universal themes of resilience and overcoming adversity. Her latest exhibition in New York was critically acclaimed, solidifying her place as one of the most powerful voices in contemporary art. Leonardo, for his part, continued to expand his work as a social justice lawyer. He had founded a non-profit organization that provided free legal assistance to those most in need, and his efforts were recognized with awards and honors. But more important than any public recognition was the positive impact he was having on people's lives. The Toscani family mansion, which he now managed, had become a symbol of transformation and altruism. Enrico, in his final years, found the peace he had long sought. His book, published under the title The Price of Pride, became a bestseller not only for its honest writing, but because it deeply resonated with those who had also faced the dilemma between pride and love. He donated all the profits to charity, continuing his commitment to redemption until the end. The story of the Toscani family became a powerful example of how love, forgiveness, and resilience can transform even in the most desperate situation. Enrico's legacy, once associated with power and oppression, was rewritten by generosity and the sincere desire to do good. Leonardo and Sofia learned that despite the difficulties and painful choices, there is always a way to move forward and find happiness. They demonstrated that a person's true worth lies not in possessions or status, but in the ability to love and care for others, even when it means sacrificing something personal. Love between them, which began so unexpectedly and with so many challenges, transformed into an unbreakable bond. They were no longer husband and wife, but they became partners in life, in art, and in justice, united by a common mission: to do good and leave the world a little better than they found it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional narratives like this, and share your opinion in the comments. We really want to know what you thought of this journey of love, forgiveness, and overcoming adversity. Your participation is very important to us. Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. They won't understand. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who make it to the end will get it.